and get started, I'd like to thank you guys for coming to our faculty development session, this time on attacking textbooks. And we have the honor to have Keely doing the presentation for us today. So take it away. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for coming. I thought about the idea of doing this simply because it's something that I've done in my classroom and conversations I've had with my students. And I think that it's probably things that all students encounter. So I named it Attacking Textbooks because 101, because the nursing level that I teach is 100 level. It's a beginning course. Now these students aren't new to the college experience. They have to have 12 credit hours of college classes, English 101, 102, and A&P, one with the lab. So they have some college experience, and they have to have a C or better, and they have to have a 21 on their ACT. So they're good students. But does that translate to being able to successfully do well in class and automatically know how to study and use the resources that they have? So I'm going to tell you some of the things, the questions that I had initially, and some of the things that I found out from students, and then some advice that I give. So some of the thoughts that I had heard from other people and some of the kind of things that I was thinking when I approached people about students and the incongruency between when I said you need to study so many hours and you need to read the textbook, and it wasn't being met with the same understanding that I thought. I had heard things like stop moaning about what the students don't know, teach them where they are, and that's fantastic. That's a great theory. But how do we know where they are, and are they all in the same place? Also, thinking, reading, and writing critically should be a basic component of 100 level courses. And so yes, it should, but how do you incorporate that? How do you encourage students to do things outside of class to help with their knowledge in not only the things we're doing in class? So then I heard the right to an education isn't the same as a guarantee of success, which is true, that I can't do the work for them. How do I encourage them to do the work outside the class to bring that effort forth during class? And so I think a basic understanding is that students want to be successful, that they're investing their time, their money, they're sacrificing their job, extracurricular activities to come to school. So how do they get the biggest bang for their buck? Okay. So when I ask students, are you reading your textbook? These are the comments that I have. I can't focus long on a book. It's too time consuming. I don't remember what I read. Some textbooks are boring. The instructor tells me everything I need to know. I don't need to read the textbook. I make decent grades. I even got reading the textbook is weird. Textbooks aren't searchable. That came from my son, who's a college student. Many textbooks make subjects more complicated. I'm more confused after I read the book than before I started. And yeah, you might flunk the test, but the test is weeks away. If I want to watch my favorite show, it's on tonight. So I'm going to do what I want to do tonight and think about studying later. So I'm cramming right before the test. Many of these conversations came when I would ask students about their experiences, but lots of them came as well after they failed that first test, and they came in to meet with me, and I said, are you reading your textbook? And so these are the responses that I got. Okay. So I've got a short video I want to show you, and surprisingly, can I exit the show to get to the video?
Yes, yeah, just hit the, yes.
Surprisingly, okay, this video is a little bit older. It's 2007, but when I showed it to students, they said it's very applicable to how they're feeling about school today.
A tested sound. We should have sound.
And it's music background.
Oh, okay.
Can you see? You can turn the lights on.
Wow. Yeah, I believe that. I got that. Benefits of the chalkboard.
Okay. All right. So some of the consistent messages that I hear from students, I saw in that I don't have lots of time to study. It's too time consuming. That when I devote time, that I end up spending half of it figuring out what I'm going to do when I'm studying. So the solution and the thing that I continue to talk to them about when they when they had failed the first test and came to see me was that you should be studying smarter, not harder. But how does that look? How does that translate to them? And so getting across that textbooks aren't the source for answers, but they're where you develop questions. And so many of them say, I don't know what to ask. And so if you've not thought about things outside of class and thought about the ideas that we're discussing, how do you know what to ask? And so some of them thought of textbooks as the last resort. That's where, and that's the wrong way to go about it. Okay, so, you know, on the flip side, you spend all this money for textbooks, why don't we explore how to get some use out of them? Okay? So nearly every class makes you read textbooks is what I hear. And the fact is that very few people read textbooks unless they have to. They don't sit at home and read textbooks. So understanding how to use a textbook is just as important as buying the textbook and having it sitting in front of you. So I have a few tips that I give students, and I actually, instead of meeting with students regularly and talking about the same issues, I started talking about it in class at the beginning of the semester. And students have said that it's helped them tremendously. Now, I give a disclaimer and say if you're doing something that's successful, please, by all means, stick with what you're doing. But if you're not happy, if you're not getting the grades you want, if you're frustrated that you're spending all of this time studying and it's not paying off, I challenge you to try my way. So the first tip is to think about a textbook as a resource. A textbook is not a novel. You don't open it in the front cover and read to the back and expect there's exciting plot twists and that there be a suspenseful ending. It doesn't work that way. So we have to think about textbooks as textbooks, and that the most important thing is when I read a textbook, much like I would use any resource, like a dictionary or a thesaurus, don't even start me on trying to explain what a thesaurus is to students, but I go in and I get what I need and I get back out, and I do that efficiently. Okay. Utilize all learning styles. So we try to figure out with students what's their learning style, and many students don't know. And in fact, they don't study according to their learning style. They study how they've seen other people study. And that doesn't mean they're successful. So I say that you have to use all of your senses when you're studying. And I challenge them to use a notebook. We're going to be kinesthetic, and we're going to take some notes, and to repeat words out loud that you don't know, because that will help you to remember them and also to recognize them again when you see them. So our plan is going to be to have a notebook for each class. And I want them to start in the beginning of this notebook in the beginning of class. Every time they read in that semester, they're taking notes. At the end of a unit, when we're going to take a test, you have all your notes in one place to review. At the end of the semester, if we take a cumulative exam, you have all your notes in one notebook. You're not going to lose them. You have them right there. So plan to take brief notes and say new words out loud while you're reading. Here's a shocker for them. Don't read front to back. Read the book backwards. So I have them go to the chapter and read the chapter summary. You got to know what you're looking for. When I go into a phone book, and again, don't let me talk to them about what a phone book is, but you know what you're looking for when you go in there. So if I read the chapter summary, I know what I'm supposed to be looking for. Read the questions at the end of the chapter and try to answer them. If you don't know, that's okay. But I know when I go in there that I'm thinking about those questions and where do I get information to answer those questions when I'm done. Read for big ideas. Here's a hint. The book is already outlined for you. So go to the beginning of the chapter and look at the headings of all the sections in there. That'll tell you the main concepts of the book. Number 5 is to go back and read for key details. So I want you to start by labeling your chapter with the title of the chapter. Then label the next section, the heading for that main section. I want you to read each paragraph. I want you to write 3 bullet points. Don't write me sentences. 3 bullet points that you learned in that paragraph. Okay? So write down those 3 bullet points. Highlight any words that you don't know, because those are going to be the key words that you're going to say out loud. Look in the glossary. It's in the back of the book. And look and see what the word means. Those are going to be the key words that you're going to need to recognize on an exam to even know how to answer the question. Read the book once, but read your notes multiple times. So the idea is to get the information from the book and get back out again. Don't spend your time mindlessly highlighting sections. You're never going to go back in and read what you highlight. That's not active learning. The learning is coming from taking that information and putting it in your notebook. You should really only have to read the chapter once. Put it away. Study your notes every day. You've got maybe 2 pages of bullet points. Read through them every night. I also want you to practice reading out loud. Talk to me when you're driving in the car. So go over a concept. If you've got your notes in front of you, talk out loud and teach your dog, teach your friend, teach your parents, teach yourself in the mirror. How are you going to get ideas across in your own words to somebody else? Okay? And so if you can do that, you really know the concepts. Okay? So I asked them again to take the challenge to join me for one exam. Just one. So maybe 2 weeks. Okay? If you're not satisfied, if you've done these things and you don't feel like you're more empowered to learn, you're not a victim of your textbook. If you can get in and get out, use the information, and you feel like you're more active in the class, that you really know what the teacher is talking about, and when you see those words on exams, you can answer those questions. If you're not satisfied, then don't do it anymore. But I offer an alternative to being frustrated and giving up, because what I've always done in the past just doesn't work anymore. All right. So how do you encourage the use of textbooks in your classroom?
I point out really important parts in the textbook, so if they're going to look at anything, to at least look at this.
Yeah.
And then I tell them to bring it to class on the times that we're going to actually get out their book. And it is surprising how many times people don't bring it to class too. But I try to bring in there's some great graphics, especially in the textbook, that I want to go over and use instead of creating my own.
Right. So students, I think, automatically think there's just a bunch of words, but newer textbooks are fantastic at highlighting things that are important and using color and giving examples that are things that they're going to remember.
So my slides are almost all images from the book that I will talk through, and then I tell them, in your book too, so you've got text next to that figure to explain it. Or I'll actually just put on a slide, like I'll have a blank slide, and be like, see this figure in your textbook, because it reinforces the points that I just went over. Also, when they email me with questions, I make them look in their book first and try and explain it to me before I give them the answer.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. Anybody else?
A lot of books on ebook too, you can have it read to you through Siri. So I try to tell them that even if they're not going to sit down with it and actually visualize it, that even if they were to listen to it in the car, it would be better than nothing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, one of the comments was that, it's not searchable or it's easier to Google. And so I think another point being that we help them to realize that it's searchable. There's a reference in the back. You can go and look up certain topics. And so I encourage that too, that if they say, that I've read it, I don't remember it, or I get confused by all the content, work backwards. So take the topics we're talking about in class and go search those in your book. Go and search for those, read the information about that. And so you can get more information and more knowledge to be able to understand the concepts. One interesting thing that I read online was that one instructor said that they have open book quizzes at the beginning of class, and they're random. So it encourages students to bring their textbook. And so if you're referring to a chart or something like that, they automatically, hopefully, may have them. And it's a time quiz, so maybe a 10-minute quiz. And if you haven't read, there's no way you can go through and find the things. But if you've read, then you should automatically be able to go in and pinpoint that and do well in the quizzes. And he said he has enough of the quizzes that they really do make a determinant on the grade for the class. And so I thought that was interesting. I have online quizzes that they can use their book, but they're not in class. But I really like the idea of doing that in class. It takes a few minutes at the beginning of class, and then they have the book right there in front of them. So if you were to do activities in class that needed the book, they hopefully should have the book there too. Any other questions, ideas, anything like that? I apologize, I didn't go very long. What do you guys think?
I just wanted to throw a comment out there. One of the things that I encounter in the library when I'm helping students do their research is they've read a bunch of articles because they were told they had to get 10 for their paper, or 15 for their paper, or 5 for their paper, or whatever. But they've read them. I mean, they've got the highlights in there, and sometimes they've even got little notes off to the side of a question they were going to ask. But when I asked them to summarize what that article said for me so that I can help them decide how to use it, they can't do that. I mean, they literally can't put in 2 sentences what the entire article was about. They can't even state the theme of the article. So if we had students And I think the problem is that they don't understand how to read critically. They're reading, their eyes are passing over the information, but they're not really reading it critically. But that is basic critical reading skills. So if you encourage your students to take because what I tell the students, well, then what were the people's arguments in this scholarly paper? What did they hypothesize and how did they back that up? That's what we've got to read for when we read the scholarly paper. Well, that's the same thing. What is this chapter in your textbook about? What are the major headings? What were the arguments beneath that? If they start to learn how to do that in a textbook, when they get into their scholarly papers, they're going to be able to do it. It'll be more automatic to them. And then you'll probably get more successful research papers too.
That's also why doing annotated bibliography is a really great exercise.
Absolutely. Absolutely, couldn't agree with you more. Should be part of every research project. Yeah. So I really, when Keely sent us these slides a little bit early, and when I was reading them, I was like, yes, yes, please have students do that.
Now, it's not guaranteed that they do, but students that I have do that really put in the time, and many times it's not students who have failed, it's students who are just not getting the grades they want to get. Yes.
Yeah.
They're going to put in the time as long as it's efficient, as long as they're getting results from it. And so I think if you already give them a game plan of how they can do that, so that when they sit down, they know what to do instead of staring at the book, flipping to so many pages they have left, looking at their phone, they're going to get in and do it and then get back out again. So I do have students that put in the time to do it. And it's no more time consuming than reading, wandering off, coming back, rereading the paragraph again, and then getting frustrated, and you wasted time because then you just shut the book and you don't do anything with it.
And I think it's amazing to me that a lot of these students got A's in high school, and I'll admit I got A's in high school too, without ever cracking a textbook. You were good at basic memorization and basic logic, so you didn't do this stuff in high school. You get to college, those strategies don't work for you anymore. You really need somebody to make explicit for you what these strategies are. And I remember in my first semester, one professor sat me down and did exactly this with me, and I went from being somebody who probably wasn't going to make it through college after getting straight A's through high school to somebody who was going to make it. So it really makes a difference to make that explicit to students who you think aren't that smart, because they might be. They might make it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting when you order a textbook. It's like going to McDonald's. I said, do you want fries with this? I mean, they want all kinds of stuff. We got this, we got the questions, and we got some stuff for you to do. I said, well, how about just teaching the course?
Yeah.
Well, we don't do that, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, what I find as well from students is, and it's human nature, that we want to study and do things we already know. It makes me feel good. If I go back and I read the things I know, if I rewrite the notes, I'm mindlessly copying, it makes me feel productive. But it's not productive, and you don't get any better results from it. So having a game plan of how you can still use the smallest amount of time possible to get in there and really learn something from it, I think is helpful. When students who come to me and they're not successful, it's usually in a plea of desperation. I don't know what to do. And when you ask them about studying, what does studying look like? Well, I have my book, I do this, but what are you really doing while you have your book open?
Thinking about dinner.
Yeah, thinking about dinner, texting somebody else, and we're all guilty of being distracted. So if we're actively doing something and we're making progress, I'm writing things, I'm making progress, I'm moving through it, then I can get finished with it. And then I don't have to keep looking back in the book and think, I don't remember anything I read, because I've got it here and I can review it every day.
And I really like the tip about writing down what you do know, and then going and looking up those words or whatever, because you're right, that's it. Rather than just wasting your time making yourself feel good, doing things that you already know, you focused on the stuff that you need to focus on.
I really encourage them to do it before we talk about that topic. I always tell them, if you are reading afterwards and you have never heard about this particular topic, you're really doing yourself a disservice, because I'm going to start, spewing, words and terms that you have no idea what I'm talking about. You're going to be totally lost and trying to play catch up. Versus if you come and you've read your book and come with some questions and see if I answer those questions. And if I don't, then you know that you need to, that's the time that you need to raise your hand.
Yeah, you can see the students that are nodding along with you, like I get it and I understand. And those are usually the ones that are asking the questions because they're making that connection. Our lectures are 3 hours in length, and after about the first 45 minutes, it's information overload. So if you have that information with you and you're filling in gaps and you're asking really thought-provoking questions and making connections, you're helping. And what I hear students say too is, I'm glad they asked that question because, I was thinking that too. And so the students, that are making the connections are the ones that are really doing the best in class.
Along those lines, to go back to your first question, how do you encourage people to use the textbook? When I teach at UK, I teach in a room like this, so it's got boards on either side, and then I've got a board up there. The students are required when they walk in, before they sit down, to write their name on the board and write their question from that day. And if all 20 people write the same question, well, then I know what I need to focus on. But usually they don't. And so they had to have read the material in order to come up with the question. It can't just be, a bogus question. But then we go through at the end of the class and we check mark, okay, somebody answered this one now. Somebody answered that one. So we can make sure that everybody got their questions answered, and I can make sure that they read, and so we can actually have a discussion. Oftentimes, starting with those questions. That works.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
But yeah, making them focus on what they don't. And your nursing students, I can tell you, nursing and biology people in here, which is everybody except for 2 people, your people in the library do study out loud. They do take turns teaching the material to each other. It's really awesome.
That's great.
I love watching it.
Being in a 100 level class as well, it's important to really convey to them that this is fundamental content, that it's foundational for going to higher levels of courses. And if they're not successful, they're not just hurting themselves on a grade, on a test grade or even a course grade, but they're preventing their learning from going forward. And when you go forward in another class, you're not going to go back and get that foundational content again. The class is going to move forward. And so hopefully sometimes that encourages them as well to really invest in the beginning course when some of them, I think this is just a beginning class. Okay. Well, thank you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great job, Denise.